Welcome back. This is The Real Mr. Mom. I'm Seeds, and today I'm going to be talking about the greatest misunderstood statements of depression. And there's quite a few, but I'm just going to talk about the top two that have stuck out to me, that have caused some, I call it, I don't want to say discomfort, but have caused my relationship with my wife a little bit of tension, just because if you don't understand these statements and what they really mean, yes, I can understand where they would cause grief, and so I'm going to dive right in. And the first statement is, I feel completely alone. And for people who suffer from depression, don't be shocked if they tell you, if you have a loved one that is suffering from depression or mental illness, that they feel completely alone. And the big thing about this is the reality of it, and also just what it means, really. So a lot of people, like when I told my wife that I felt completely alone, that hurt her, because she thought that I was referring to that her and my children, their existence, the love they bring to my life wasn't enough. And the fact of the matter is that wasn't what I was referring to. By that I mean, you feel alone with your pain by feeling alone. And the fact of the matter is that you are alone with your pain, because the only person that knows your pain is you. And therefore you can talk all day about your pain and what it does and what it means, but unless you suffer from that pain, unless you are the person being inflicted by it, you're not going to understand it. You're not going to understand its totality. And so you are alone with your pain. And so just to bring clarity, if you're in a relationship with somebody who's suffering from mental illness, or if you are suffering from mental illness and have spoken those words or are afraid of speaking those words, that's one of the importance of being aware of mental illness, is being aware of it in its true form, not trying to sugarcoat it. Because I feel like, with myself, a lot of times I have tried to play down my pain and try to play down how I really feel, because I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to be misunderstood. And when I have talked about it, like I said, I've been misunderstood, and so it just discourages me from speaking. But me, self-reflecting on that, and suffering from depression for a great amount of years, I realized the importance of me not being afraid of speaking my mind and saying what's really going on. And again, too, though, I would warn you, if you're going to speak of your pain, to be patient and to be ready to be misunderstood. Because like I said, unless you've gone through it, it's really, really, really hard to really give the full picture of what your pain and what depression can do to you. Because, I said before I suffered from my twin was killed in action, I didn't understand pain. And so that in of itself, makes me wary, makes me worry about being misunderstood and reaching out, because I wouldn't have understood what I was talking about beforehand. I was talking earlier today about that concept, about how, before my twin was killed, I liked action movies, I liked war movies, and there'd be moments where the scene was intense, and it didn't have a huge effect on me. And so, whereas and after, I was watching. I purchased the movie American Sniper, but I owned it for 3 years before I actually watched it, because I was terrified of where it would bring me, and I ended up being right, because in that movie, where Chris Kyle was actually in the same vicinity of where my twin was in the Marine Corps. And so it's very likely that they crossed paths, or were, again, very at the least in the same vicinity. And so I knew that the combat I was going to witness was going to bring me to the part of the country where my brother fought and died. And so it was very, very difficult for me to watch that, and me realizing that movie and scenes like that and conversations following my twin's death, I respond very differently. And so I'm able to realize that, again, when you're talking to somebody who hasn't gone through a severe traumatic loss, they're not going to understand what you're talking about. And it's just really important to fill that gap, so that people who are suffering from depression and mental illness can speak out and not be afraid of being misunderstood, and feel like they can open up and be honest with how they feel and not be afraid of the miscommunication and some type of I don't want to say falling out in a relationship. You don't want to alienate the people around us. But like I said, that's the nature of pain, is it makes us alone with it because we're the only ones that know our pain. But again, it's just important to understand what that means. It doesn't mean that you don't have any love in your life and that you don't have things that are excessively valuable to you. It just means that you feel alone with your pain because at the end of the day, you're the only one that knows its full force, its full power over you. And so again, it's just important to understand that when someone says they feel alone, if they're talking to you and you're a loved one, that they're not saying that your love isn't enough. They're just saying that, it's just, having a traumatic loss is a very lonely feeling because, again, like I said, you're alone with it. But the second statement, it's kind of the same nature as far as, I say one of the things that I feel anyways, and I'm assuming that others who have had traumatic loss feel the same ways, that we feel guilty if we feel happy. It's a real kick in the teeth because it's like I'd say the end goal of fighting depression and mental illness is you want to be happy. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of times when I start to feel happy, I'll start to feel sad and depressed and get anxiety because I feel guilty. I feel like because I'm feeling happy, I'm somehow forgetting about my twin's death. And so it's just important to understand the nature of why somebody who's suffering depression might say that to you or express that, where you see they're at a wedding, and that's the other thing too that I've talked about in the past, as far as like the most, I don't say the most tense, but the most likely situations that someone's going to be suffering from their depression, or at the very least be vulnerable to it, is around the holidays, around let's say get-togethers like weddings or parties or whatever, birthday parties, because it's a highlight that loved one is not there. And obviously day in and day out that loved one isn't there, but especially on big events, milestones. When I got married, that was 2 years after my twin had been killed. And then having my first, second, and third, and fourth kid, every time I had a child, I was just being reminded that my twin wasn't there. And so that's the thing, is that, I get all excited about these family get-togethers or celebrations, and then when the day actually comes, a lot of times I end up being sad because I haven't mentally prepared myself. So that's an important thing too for people who are suffering from mental illness, or if you know somebody who's suffering from mental illness, it is important to be prepared to be sad. And by that I mean not to be bleak or be pessimistic. It's just a matter of, I think, preparing your mind so that it can healthfully, I'm sorry, I'm tired a little bit, I can't, but efficiently, effectively, and in a good manner, get out your emotions so that they don't take over. Because a lot of times with myself, I've found that if I don't allow myself a healthy way of expressing my pain, specifically on my twin and my birthday, or the day he was killed, a lot of times my pain will take over and I won't talk about what's going on. I won't talk about my feelings because I haven't prepared for it, and so it just sneaks up on me and kind of hijacks who I am. It kind of puts me on the autopilot where I just kind of coast through the day, trying to not let my pain ruin it. And in fact, a lot of times I have let it ruin events, ruin get-togethers, because I try to just hope and pray that I'll just be happy, and then I inevitably feel guilty for trying to be happy, for trying to celebrate, because I feel like, again, like I said, that if I'm happy, that means that somehow, you just evaluate yourself and evaluate the situation and think, how can I possibly be happy if this loved one is gone? And again, like I said, with these get-togethers that would be a celebration of joy, it's very easy for me to allow that guilt to seep in, because it is supposed to be a moment of celebration. But a lot of times, like I said, you just let your pain take over and you end up missing out. And so it's kind of ironic, because a lot of times when you seek to be happy, or you start to be happy, you end up being miserable. And so again, there's this internal hijacking where you seem to think that I shouldn't try to be happy, because when I'm happy, I end up being sad. And so it's really just a vicious cycle. And so again, it's just important to understand the nature, like I said, of depression, that it's going to screw with your mind, and it's going to make you think that it's wrong for you to be happy, that that you can't feel happiness because you're denying the pain that happened. And that's one thing I've learned is that, if you distract your mind, if you have all this positivity around you, your sadness is never going to leave you. And it's really important to separate sadness with depression because they're not the same thing. I think a lot of people might think that, they're connected in a manner, but sadness is actually a very healthy way of getting your emotions out. When I feel sadness, I don't feel overwhelmed. I mean, you might feel overwhelmed with sadness, but I don't feel like the world, I can't beat the world. It's going to beat me. But depression's the part that will make you feel like you're hopeless. That'll make you, that has a physical, reaction to you. And obviously, if you're sad, you might tear up. You might feel a little drained from energy, but you're not going to feel hopeless. Anxiety and depression is really what has the physical. How I put it is it's kind of like getting a bear hug by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You're not going anywhere, and so that's the important thing, is to make that distinction. Allow yourself to be sad when you're having to get together. To allow yourself to be sad, missing your loved one. But I think as long as you allow your sadness, then you can get the tears out. You can get the emotion out. Take some deep breaths, and then tackle life, enjoy it. But like I said, I think if you deny your sadness, if you deny your natural emotion of the absence of your loved one, then a lot of times anxiety and depression will take over, and anxiety and depression will ruin your day. It'll ruin your week and month and year. And so again, it's just really important to be aware of the miscommunication that goes on when people suffering from mental illness are trying to reach out or open up or be honest with what's actually going on, because a lot of the times they're not saying what you think. I mean, they're saying what you think in the sense of words, but they're not actually meaning in the manner with which you're taking it. So again, it's really important to know these things. And again, there's I'm sure I'd have to think about all the phrases, but again, it's just really important for somebody suffering from mental illness and depression to not be afraid of opening up and being honest with how things are going, because a lot of times that's all you're looking for. As I've said in other videos, when I'm opening up, when I'm saying I feel completely lonely or I feel guilty that I'm happy, I'm not looking for the person who I'm talking to pull out some seeds is problems and answers book and tell me what I need to do or how things can be all right. A lot of times I'm just really looking for decompression. I'm looking to get it off my chest and live in a world where it's okay for me to be honest with how I feel about what's going on. So again, I would encourage everyone who's suffering from mental illness and who knows somebody who's suffering from mental unhappiness and depression to find comfort and figure out how you can effectively communicate, because a lot of times you just need a handful of bad reactions when you're opening up about your pain for it to really just put you off from opening up ever again. And the biggest dangerous thing about mental illness is that a lot of times it does not become apparent that you need help until you're on the brink or it's too late. And so again, it's just being aware of the smaller impacts of the struggles you have day in and day out, and really get a handle of it before it starts taking over how you make decisions or how you how you want to have get-togethers or avoid get-togethers altogether. Because like I say, for many years I avoided getting together with family and friends because I was just terrified of being hurt, of being misunderstood, of people thinking I should be over my pain. And so I would just avoid them altogether. And like I said, over the years, I've just discovered that it's just really important for me not to be afraid of those things. And again, to be ready to be misunderstood, but also be ready to clarify what I mean and really, self-reflect on my emotions, on those internal statements of myself feeling completely lonely, of, me really thinking about what does that mean to me? Why am I saying I feel completely lonely? And it's because, like I said, I'm alone with my pain. And so by nature, I know it's full force. I know how ugly it is. And I know that I can talk for days about how it feels. And I understand that no one's going to really fully comprehend what I'm saying. And not to find discouragement in that, but again, to think about what I can do. Think about what I can control and accept what I can't. But as always, good luck and good night.